Today we're transforming this gorgeous old wooden cedar chest into something that fits in more with the modern style we're seeing today. This makeover is much easier than you would expect, and you can watch as we explain all the steps that it took to paint it beautiful with Fusion Mineral Paint. The first step in any project is making sure that the piece is cleaned very well and that you remove any grime, grease, dust, or dirt so that it's all cleaned before you start any sand, painting, staining, etc. We recommend that you use Fusion's TSP alternative to clean your surface properly for prep. And did you know that Fusion's TSP alternative is a biodegradable, concentrated, non-rinse formula? The one bottle of this is enough to clean approximately 20 pieces of furniture, and it's only just $10, which is a great investment. After this was clean, we needed to start removing the old finish that's on the top of this chest. We are using a paint remover where you spray the top of the chest and make sure that the surface is completely saturated with the remover. We only had to let that sit for about 15 minutes before it started working, and then we were able to start scraping it off, which is very satisfying. We ended up doing this process twice in order to remove as much of that old finish as possible. The edges of this chest have this gorgeous detail, which did take a little bit more work to remove the old finish. We used steel wool along with a small metal brush to really get into those small details. Once all of the old finish was removed, we sprayed down the whole piece with QCS surface cleaner to neutralize it. And this is what the wood looked like before we started sanding. We then sanded down the top with 120 grit sandpaper, and we did this as evenly and consistently as we could because we were prepping the piece to be stained. However, it was so hot outside that you could see resin starting to pop up from the wood, so that was our sign to move inside because 30-degree weather is not the temperature to stain and paint in. Although before we moved inside, we realized we had accidentally dripped some of the finish remover down the sides of the chest. So we cleaned that up, removed it, and then we sanded down some of the areas of the chest that needed to be smoothed out, and then scuff sanded the rest before we started painting. We painted the bottom of this piece in the color Bellwood by Fusion Mineral Paint and applied all of it using this Stallmeister 1 Series flat angled brush. And we thought we may need to use a couple different brushes for different areas of the piece, but we were loving this brush. It was able to get into all of those details. We only needed to use a small detail brush for the tiny curves on the front of the piece. When you're painting your furniture pieces with Fusion Mineral Paint, remember, less is more. Less paint helps you eliminate brush strokes and get a smooth pro finish. The aim is not full coverage with your first coat. As you can see here on this piece, we applied a thin first layer and there is some transparency, but don't worry, that's normal. For this chest, we only needed to do 2 thin layers of paint to get that full coverage that we needed. And once that was dried, we covered it up so we could start staining the top. We're going to be using one of Fusion's new stain and finishing oils in the color Taupe, and we're using an economy brush to apply this on. We don't recommend using any of your high quality brushes when applying SFO, as the brushes would need a major clean with our odorless solvent afterwards so that they could be used again, or they might possibly need to be thrown out after applying this. Also, it is okay to have excess when you're applying this. You want the wood to be saturated. The goal is to let the wood absorb as much as the stain as possible before you remove the excess. I just spread this out as evenly as possible and then wait 15 minutes before I come back and wipe off all the excess. We ended up doing this process 2 times to have a bit more pigmentation on the top because this wood was really hard to penetrate. Every wood is going to be different with how it takes stain. Hardwoods will absorb less stain and then softwoods will absorb more. And then if you want to add more sheen but not intensify the color of the stain, you can always add a coat of the SFO in natural. However, despite this being a hardwood, we are very happy with the end result. We absolutely love how this isn't a dark piece anymore. It's more light and airy, and it really matches the rest of how our home is styled. And make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our Fusion Mineral paint makeovers.